So we're gonna we're gonna jump through a few parts in the books. I just have so much so many questions I have, but we're gonna kind of narrow it down. I know when you started off in the book, you really discussed how your early life, how that kind of molded who you were, and kind of the trials that you had to overcome. So how did you, and I know you discussed your mother in the book, and I think that was very, very powerful, and how your grandmother was like a pillar to you, But how did your mother? I know you mentioned how she came down with the HIV/AIDS virus. How did that affect you as a young man? Growing up, and did that kind of affect your future relationships with women? Because I know I read in the book how you kind of compared some of your relationships to your mother. So do you think they had a parallel with relationships with women and stuff like that?
Well, I don't necessarily think it had my relationships with women. I think it just affects my relationships overall with people. Because, as I said in the book, the one thing that I always yearned for was my mother's love. And I had never heard my mother ever say she loved me or even display any type of love towards me. Not until she had gotten really ill from the HIV virus. And so, for those who haven't read the book like that or not be familiar, but my mother, as you mentioned, that she was a heroin addict and she was a prostitute. So that affected me as a young boy because, none of my friends, I grew up in a very normal neighborhood. So when you grew up in a normal environment and then something is out of the norm, and which is someone who's a prostitute, it was very disheartening. It was, I prayed and asked God and questioned on many occasions, why me? Why was I born to this woman? Why, was my life the way it was? Why didn't I have this normal family? So I always questioned it, and it didn't really affect me, that I lied a lot. People ask me what my mother did. You go to school and your parents, your kids always ask, so what did your mother do? So I always get up a lot like my mother was a nurse or something like that. So early on I learned how to hide and to be ashamed. And so then you add, the fact that, I'm, a young man struggling with his sexuality, there's the shame again. So I've already had to deal with shame on a bigger level than most people probably ever have. And, dealing with my mother's HIV status was, a tremendous blow to me. Not only just me, but my entire family. Nobody else, knew how to deal with that. It was in the early 90s. When it, happened. And that's when AIDS, HIV came into the scene. So, it was definitely a struggle. The relationship I continued to have with other people, I put up a guard because I didn't trust people. I always felt that the relationships were shallow. That people would abandon you. People would leave you. I just always felt like that. So it really affected me. But I was constantly searching for love in all my relationships. So for me, I equated sex with love.
Right.
And I talk about that a lot in the book. Every relationship I was in was a sexual relationship. And it's because I was looking for love and hoping, at one point in the book I do say that, if someone even thought I was cute or said I was cute, I went to bed with them because I was like, they must love me,
Yeah.
So now as I'm older, I realize, there's a difference, but when you're young and you are experiencing something like that, it is very hard to differentiate between the two.
So I know in the book you also kind of touched briefly on the church and how you said you the men in the church were labeled church queens and stuff like that. But what do you feel about homosexuality in the black church and how there's a lot of hypocrisy in the black church? Because I did an interview with Alexis Tyler some months back and we discussed this and how there's a lot of hypocrisy in the black church, how we condemn homosexuality, but yet you have a lot of the choir directors, a lot of the preachers sleeping around with other men on the side. And not only that, you look in the gospel music industry and stuff like that, and you see a lot of men that are living this double life. So what role do you think the church is playing in this, and what role do you think they have played in this, and how can we, as a religious community, at least open up the dialogue and look into this issue without being judgmental?
That's a very hard and loaded question, and it would involve, a huge, undertaking to have that conversation and have ministers to be open to have that conversation. As you mentioned, when the black church is the staple and the backbone of the black community.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us look to, the minister, because he is, if you think back after slavery and pre-slavery, the minister has always been the one who has been the go-to person, as well as the man who's seen as the leader of the black community. So when you have that person who is, condemning and, lambasting homosexuals and, the sin of it, but like you said, there's so many people who are suffering and struggle within that community with their sexuality. It is a hypocrisy. And there are so many of us who are in the black church, and I think that's why a lot of black men don't attend church, because of the hypocrisy, because so many of them, are dealing and struggling with their sexuality, and then to go someplace where you are condemned, and you're like, I don't want to hear a message of condemnation. I'm looking for salvation, and that's what the church should be about.
Right.
It's teaching and preaching salvation. And then also I know a lot of gay men who go to church because that's where they think they can find their salvation. So they feel that when they condemn, they feel like, well, I can condemn my homosexuality, condemn myself, and become a slave, and it's become like this vicious cycle. Because I know so many men, personal friends of mine who said, I'm not gay anymore, and they get back involved in the church, which is something I did. I was like, okay, I'm not gay no more, and I go to the church, to find out, just to repress who I was. And if you think about it, Donnie McClurkin has said the same thing.
Right.
He said, if you're diabetic, a diabetic is not going to keep eating sugar because sugar is not good for you. And that's the same thing he was related to with, him dealing with his sexuality, which was, I'm not going to put myself in that environment if I know I can't handle it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the church, for a lot of black gay men, have become a place where they can go to and say, you know what, I'm not going to go to the gay club. I'm not going to be a part of the gay community. If I'm going to indulge myself and immerse myself in the black church, which condemns me. But, however, I can find hopefully some salvation in my own self to know that I can be saved. It's very